All right, welcome to Shifted Health, episode 6. We're doing a little something different this time. We got a little voice call, but we appreciate you guys tuning in week to week. And also for those that are listening on iTunes, continue to listen. And we got a little treat for you. Last week we were talking about CrossFit with Dr. Eric Richards, but this week we're going to be talking about another strategy of what's important as well in our lifestyle. It's nutrition. So today I would like to welcome Dr. David Jockers, all the way from Georgia. And Ralph, why don't you go ahead and give us a little rundown on what Dr. Jockers has done?
Yeah, you guys, we're in luck. There's not much this guy hasn't done. He's a maximized living doctor, a corrective care chiropractor, a nutritionist, an exercise physiologist, and a certified health and conditioning specialist. He currently owns and operates Exercise Health Center, which is in Kennesaw, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He's also the author of his own book called Supercharge Your Brain, which is a phenomenal book. I implore all you guys to go out and read it. And beyond that, you guys, he's an amazing person. I had the experience of peaking or interning with him for the last 3 months down in Atlanta, and I had to tell you guys, I learned so much. It was such a beneficial experience. So I'm happy to welcome Dr. Jockers today.
Hey, great to be on with you guys.
So I guess our first question is, since you are a chiropractor, we know this, but you all also are an expert in nutrition. What are we doing wrong? Why are we getting sicker as a nation? From a nutritional standpoint, what are we messing up at?
Well, there's a couple things. It's a really good question. But, basic foundation, we have all wrong. I mean, we load up on carbohydrates. Most people ruin their physiology first thing in the morning because right away in the morning, they're starting their day out with refined carbohydrates. I know I was doing this for years. We were eating like bowls of cereal. And basically, when we do that, when we consume the refined carbohydrates, such as a bowl of cereal, then our blood sugar goes skyrocketing, and we end up secreting a lot of insulin. And insulin is this hormone that really turns on inflammation in our body. So it causes inflammation, and it also puts us into fat storage mode. So if you have the type of genetics that will end up leading to fat storage, you'll end up getting large. Other individuals that are leaner, they end up just overshooting with insulin, and they end up with blood sugar imbalances where they get very hypoglycemic. So they end up just with no energy. And so, they eat this refined carbohydrate breakfast, and then a couple hours later, 2-3 hours later, they have low energy, they're thirsty, and they just feel awful. And so we started out first thing in the morning with just really ruining our day. And then we just continue throughout the day. So for lunch, we typically are having some sort of sandwich, carbohydrates and protein, really tough on our digestive system. We got to use a lot of enzymes, a lot of energy. Throughout the day, we're loading up with stimulants just to keep us energized. And then at night, I know for myself growing up, it was always pasta, pizza, macaroni and cheese. It was always carbohydrates again. And so this constant flow of carbohydrates, we're just spiking our blood sugar, increasing inflammation, and storing fat and damaging our brain and the rest of our tissues. And so it's causing a lot of problems. It'll catch up with you if you continue to do that and cause a myriad of degenerative diseases.
Definitely. I mean, you talk about the mistakes you make first thing in the morning. Walk us through your morning. What do you do when you wake up?
Yeah, so for myself, I practice intermittent fasting. So I actually don't eat breakfast. In the morning, I get up, and between the time I get up, which is usually around 6:30 in the morning, till about 12:30, I'll drink about a half gallon of water. And so I'm just super hydrating my system. And I'm also getting a lot of antioxidant extracts. So I'll squeeze lemon in my water. I'll use different supplements that are rich in antioxidants. I might have different herbs, things like that. Fermented drinks like apple cider vinegar or even coconut water kefir, something along those lines. Okay. So I'm consuming fermented drinks. I'm consuming antioxidants and lots of hydration. And that really just helps cleanse my body, helps me detoxify, and it really helps reduce my microbial load, which is really a cutting-edge topic. So we all have these bacterial systems. We have tons and tons of microorganisms in our body, and part of good health is really keeping those microorganisms under control. And so lots of water in the morning just helps flush out microbial waste, which reduces inflammation in your body. And I actually feel the best when I'm going through that fasting period. I usually eat my first meal around 1 o'clock, and not because I'm really hungry, actually. I'm usually not even that hungry. I just want something that just give me a little pickup. So I eat light and just give me a little pickup so that way I can have a really productive afternoon.
That's also a great point, because when you're sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night, the first thing that you probably do want to do is what you're suggesting, and you want to make sure that you fill yourself up with water. Touching back on the topic about us eating a lot, with a lot of our listeners at home are in the East Indian community, and majority of our lifestyle is, for those that are listening at home, is they're taking in a lot of carbs in the morning and throughout the day. And it's something that you see is that in this country as well, we're seeing a lot of people have diabetes. Diabetes is a natural response from the body from secreting insulin throughout a long period of time, especially when, as humans, we're not listening to our system and understanding what are the right foods that we need to eat.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so diabetes is a lifestyle-based disease. And when we have improper nutrition, we're going to end up leading to that. Yeah, and particularly, I recently heard that India was actually number 3, the country itself, in diabetes. You look at it, it's really because a lot of the poor people there, the only access they have to food is refined rice and stuff like that. So they're just eating a very high carb diet. And, it's going to catch up with all of us if we do that. So really building our meals with good fats, lots and lots of good fats like coconut, avocados, extra virgin olive oil, grass-fed butter, nuts and seeds, healthy, sustainable, pasture-raised animal products. That should be the staple, and that will help ward off degenerative diseases like diabetes.
Dr. Jockers, I'm curious, before we get too much further into the actual implementation and really analyzing the American diet right now, I'm curious for you. Obviously, you mentioned the myriad of things that you've done and that the kind of different hats that you wear. As a chiropractor, you've really found a niche in the nutritional world, and I'm curious kind of what brought you to that, and if you could share with our listeners why you even cared about that and what drove you to that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, for myself, I grew up and my mom was always very interested in nutrition. She's actually now a naturopath. And so we were on every kind of diet, macrobiotic diet. And, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, that's what we thought was healthy, this low fat, kind of vegan oriented diet. And, we experimented with a lot of different things. And I ended up getting quite sick in my early 20s. Even though I was into fitness, into sports, and I was a personal trainer at the time, I got quite sick with irritable bowel syndrome. And really it came down to my lifestyle, just poor lifestyle in general. And so from that point, I just became obsessed with learning everything I possibly could about the body, how the body works, proper movement patterns, nutrition, everything I could. And, I was able to regain my health. And it's just, that obsession has just continued to grow. In fact, one of my favorite things to do, I'm in my office part-time now because fortunately, I've got a great team and great doctors. And my real passion is learning, studying, and creating content. I just really enjoy writing. And I don't feel like I master a subject until I can write multiple articles on it. And so over the years, and I really started this my first year of practice, just every time I would get questions that I didn't feel like I had a concrete or a confident enough answer to, I would spend the time researching. It would go on a list. It was like my to-do list. And I would research it in-depthly and write a well-researched, succinct, and an article that was easy to read, that somebody that, whether you are a scientist, a doctor, or a layperson, you can read it, make sense of it, understand it, and apply it to your life. And so through that, I've written now over 1,000 published articles and a book just by going through that process. And so over the last 5 years, learning and writing countless articles. I mean, really, I've probably written, good 250 articles a year. I've been able to accumulate quite a bit of knowledge and experience working with people.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
They say that when you can teach, you really understand that you own a subject. And by watching you work in your practice, I see you teaching people about numerous topics every day. So from seeing you, I know that you do own this information that you talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, as a writer, all of my stuff is getting published. Mm-hmm. And of course, I set up my own website and I write for a lot of magazines and newsletters. And so that started attracting attention. And so I started getting a lot of very serious health cases, a lot of autoimmune disorders, cancers, and different things like that. And, I've had a good level of success helping those people. And so, every time we had success, of course, we want to make sure that if that individual's open to it, that they write up their testimonial. And, and fortunately my patients, good majority of them understand that when they get healthy, it's not really just about them, that, their health story is a way to reach out and help people and give people hope that they may never meet. And so, we just accumulated testimonials, and of course, testimonials bring more people with similar conditions in. And so, now I've got a waiting list of clients I'm working with long distance, in a great local practice as well.
Kudos to you, and you found your niche, and it's something that you're passionate about, obviously. For the listeners at home and also the ones who are viewing this, what are some supplements that, especially with what's going on right now with not getting the amount of nutrients that we are in the soil and the foods that we're eating, what are some supplements that you would highly recommend that we as humans start taking?
Yeah, these are what I call the core four. And so these are supplements that for most people, because really ultimately to know the right supplements for each individual, you would certainly want to do some testing. But these are the core four that most people will do quite well with. And the first one is vitamin D. Typically we should be getting a good amount of sun exposure on a regular basis. Our ancestors were. Today's day and age, of course, we're indoors most of the day. We're just not getting that sun exposure.
We should have had this call outside in the sun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys are in San Diego, so there's no excuse for you guys getting out, laying out, going out to the beach, doing what you need to do to get the sun exposure. But for most of us, we're not getting that. And so good regular supplementation with vitamin D is highly recommended. And I recommend about 2,000 international units per 50 pounds of body weight. So, if you're 150 pounds, it should be about 6,000 international units a day. Now, if you're white skin, if you're Caucasian, you go out, you got a tank top on or something like that, you go out for 30 minutes, you're going to get that. So you wouldn't need to supplement that day. But that's kind of a typical rule, about 2,000 per 50 pounds of body weight. Another great supplement is omega-3 fatty acids. Okay. So, getting enough of these in your diet, most people aren't doing, or at least they're not doing for a good majority of their life. And so, if you're eating wild-caught fish on a regular basis, wild-caught salmon, lots of chia seeds, grass-fed meat, pastured eggs, you may be getting, good majority of omega-3s, but most people aren't. And so supplementing with a high-quality omega-3 fatty acid is extremely important, especially if you have chronic inflammation in your body. You'll definitely want to do it. And especially taking an omega-3 has antioxidants, maybe astaxanthin to protect it, or some sort of like a liposomal vitamin C, a fat-soluble vitamin C, to help protect the omega-3s so that way they get into your system appropriately. So that's a great supplement as well. I'd also recommend a whole food multivitamin with antioxidants and key B vitamins, particularly pre-methylated B vitamins such as methylfolate and methylcobalamin, which is B-nifolate. Most of us have heard of folate before. It's just a more bioavailable form. And B12. We're finding that a lot of people just are deficient in antioxidants and key trace minerals because our ground is just it's just deprived. So we haven't really supported healthy topsoil, and we've really overcropped. So even if we're buying organic fruits and vegetables, getting pasture-raised meat, a lot of times we still don't have the nutrient quality that we need. So taking a good whole food multivitamin is key. And then the pre-methylated Bs are key because a lot of people have these genetic mutations where they're struggling. We've had years and years of environmental stress, toxicity in our society, and we've got more and more genetic variants, genetic polymorphisms that are developing because, our parents ultimately didn't know how to take care of themselves. And so a lot of people are struggling with this methylation process. And so taking a multivitamin that has a pre-methylated B complex would be very supportive to the body. And then probiotics as well to support good gut health. When you're under chronic stress or you're eating, just a diet rich in carbohydrate, you're gonna tear down your gut, your gut membrane. So good probiotics are extremely critical for supporting that. So a good high quality probiotic, particularly with soil-based organisms, that's especially important. A lot of times people are supplementing with probiotics that have a lot of lactobacillus groups, which are good, but we really also need these strong, sturdy human soil organisms like Bacillus subtilis and different organisms like that, they'll withstand high acidity. They just have a stronger effect getting into the gut and supporting our body. Typically, our ancestors were getting them by just pulling vegetables out of their garden and eating them straight up. Of course, we're not regularly doing that, so getting those in our in supplements is going to be important.
So I'm curious, most people, a lot of people take supplements, but a lot of people don't know that there's a difference in terms of quality supplements. A lot of times, I think most of your average Americans are going down to Costco or going to Target and grabbing something off the shelf. And I know that, we know that there's differences between, for example, food grade, pharmaceutical grade in terms of supplementation, in terms of the bioavailability of supplementation. Can you touch on how someone knows if they're even having a good supplement, or what are some of the key things to look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's not an easy question. Ultimately, though, just for a simplistic answer, if you were to get something at Walmart or Costco, it's not going to be good. Unfortunately, those large supply stores, we all understand that. Those large supply stores, they're not known for good value when it comes to health products. And so they're low cost, but they don't have the quality. So we definitely don't want those. Typically, I always look first thing at the different forms, which can be, it can be a little confusing to look at, like D-alpha tocopherol versus L. However, you can also look at filling agents, and that's a good way to know if the supplement is good or not. If it's got things like magnesium stearate in there, if it's got ingredients like benzoates that are in there, or potassium sorbates and different things like that. When you start seeing these chemical sounding names in the filling ingredients, good idea to stay away from those. Those are chalk fillers, and they can cause problems in the body. And typically it's a reflection of a lower quality supplement.
Okay. Now, bringing it back to the realm of simplicity, which is what I love to do, what are a few simple steps our listeners can take, say tomorrow or the next day, to improve their diet and improve their health?
Yeah, great. So first thing I would say is really try to focus on getting a lot of good fats in your diet. So again, we want to talk about focusing on things like butter from grass-fed cows. We want coconut oil, coconut products, lots and lots of coconut products. We want to use avocados on a regular basis. We want to use things like raw chocolate, which is actually a really good fat, tons of antioxidants in there. We want to use extra virgin olive oil. We want to use pasture-raised animal products. These are going to be really, really our staples. And of course, trying to get a lot of organic, low glycemic fruit and vegetables into our system. So things like berries, lemons, limes, Granny Smith apples, grapefruits, those are all low glycemic fruits. And then vegetables, lots of non-starchy vegetables. And herbs. Herbs are something that most people just, they don't use, they don't think about. Mm-hmm. Getting as much herbs as possible. I mean, for myself, anytime I'm having a more savory dish, like a meat-based dish or steamed vegetables or something like that, salad, I'm going to load it up with things like oregano, basil, thyme, rosemary. These are really powerful antioxidants. They taste good. They smell good. So getting a lot of high-quality herbs. We're speaking about Indian food, so turmeric, one of the most powerful herbs you can put in your system. And so for that East Indian community, if you're going to have your rice, you want to make it a very anti-inflammatory rice. A lot of people don't want to give up their cuisine, but they can make it better. So you would take something like a brown rice, you cook it up, and then you would go ahead, add some apple cider vinegar to it. The good enzymes will help pre-metabolize the starch, which will help it make it more bioavailable, make it lower glycemic, and make it easier in the digestive system. And actually, it tastes better that way, too. You load it up with turmeric. You want to take the brown rice and make it orange rice. You want to put so much turmeric to where it changes the entire color of the rice. You put some black pepper in there. The pepperine that's in the black pepper helps with better absorption. And then you put extra virgin olive oil on it. And then you put more herbs. You can put things like ginger if you wanted to. You can put the Italian herbs, oregano, basil, thyme, rosemary. Put as much herbs in there as possible. And now you've got an anti-inflammatory rice dish. So you can have your rice, but now it's anti-inflammatory. I know in the East Indian community, they also like to put coconut milk in the rice. So that's a great idea too, more good fats. So there you go. That's a real applicable step. But we definitely want to load up with good fats. We want to get lots of antioxidants, getting those herbs into our system, and then really drinking a lot of clean water. You know, a lot of people are they're drinking just typical tap water, which is loaded with toxins. So getting a good water filtration system at your house, something like a portable reverse osmosis system or a real strong carbon filter would be highly advisable, and getting a good shower filter too. So you're not showering in chlorinated, fluoridated, pharmaceutical-laced water. It's a great idea to reduce toxicity in your body.
As chiropractors, our basic form of education is the brain, the nervous system, and having that brain and body connection. But sometimes we forget that how important that connection is for the gut. The gut is what controls the immune system, and in the end, the immune system ties back into the brain. So when we have people or patients coming into our office, we want to be able to at least educate them on, I think the most, especially what you touched on, is probiotics. Can you give somebody at home a good idea of what they need to look for in a probiotic, of how many cultures they need to see inside of a probiotic?
Yeah, just for a basic probiotic, you want something with a diverse amount of microorganisms would be ideal. And there's definitely some debate about this, and it depends on the individual. So sometimes people have small bacterial overgrowth, and that could be a whole nother topic. Then we want a lot of antimicrobial aspects first before we add in probiotics. But for somebody that's just looking for a good probiotic supplement to get started with, look for something with a diverse amount, 10 or more species, along with, I always tell people, try to get at least 50 billion CFUs, colony-forming units. I mean, you have about 1 trillion microorganisms in your gut. So if you're going to make any impact, I mean, you got to be looking at 50, 100 billion at a time when you're supplementing with the probiotics. So, that's just a good way to start. So if you really don't have major digestive issues, taking a good quality probiotic will help prevent any future digestive issues. If you do have serious digestive issues where they have Crohn's disease or celiac disease or irritable bowel syndrome, things like that, really best idea to seek out a good, well-trained practitioner who can help customize the right protocol for you first, because we might need to kill off bad microorganisms before we start supplementing with the good stuff.
Sure. Now, I know the answer to this question before I even ask you, but I want to ask it so all of our listeners hear it too. What's your take on fermented foods and making your own?
Yeah, fermented foods, I've always been a really big fan of fermented foods, making them yourself, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, making your own pickles, coconut water kefir, kombucha. I mean, all these things, you can make a good majority of them on your own. When you work with a lot of serious cases like I do, you realize that there's, as we wish we could just tell everybody to follow the same plan. What I've realized, I've been very humbled working with a lot of serious cases. I've found that some people really, fermented foods flare them up like crazy. They have a histamine intolerance. However, I would say a majority of people, probably 80%, will do great adding in fermented foods on a regular basis starting today. And so 4 out of 5 will do fantastic with that. So it's a great idea to start with that. If you start with fermented foods and you just feel awful, you're doing it every day for a week and you just feel awful, that's a sign that there's some other serious issues going on. So again, that's another sign you'd want to seek out recommendations from a good, well-trained, functional practitioner. However, most people do great. So adding in plant-based like sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented beverages like coconut water kefir, kombucha, dairy-based, something like a grass-fed kefir, or like a product that we're big on with Beyond Organic, Amasi. Yeah. So great products like those would be highly advisable for most people. And it's a good idea. It actually gives you a lot of information about your body, whether you tolerate that or not.
That's good. That's good stuff. I'm curious in terms of one of the hot button issues right now is the GMO debate and all the craziness right now with Monsanto and all of that. What is your take on that? What is your take on the impact that could have? I know some people feel it's a huge deal. Some people want to downplay it, the severity of that. Where do you stand on the GMO situation?
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely huge deal. when we look at the amount of chronic inflammatory disorders in our society today, it's an epidemic level. And numerous research articles have shown that GMOs, they really damage the gut lining. And so they do a lot more than that, but that's one of the key aspects. And so we're consuming that. If you consume GMOs long enough period of time, you're going to have gut inflammation. And that gut inflammation, when that gut gets damaged, it just creates a whole slew of problems in your body. And it is not easy to repair that gut. It takes sacrifice. It takes determination. So staying away from GMOs is one of the smartest things somebody could do for their health. That right there is just an initial first step, just going on a completely GMO-free diet, absolutely key for good health. It's going to be really hard to have sustainable good health if you're consuming GMOs on a regular basis.
And so what are some of the toughest things to stay away from in terms of GMO? I know, for example, corn is one of the biggest. Can you give our listeners a couple things to make sure that they stay away from or some common GMO products?
Yeah, corn, soy, and sugar beets are the most genetically modified crops. And so anything with corn, and really in general, just staying away from corn altogether is going to be a good idea. Same thing with soy and sugar, of course. These are three things that we definitely would do well without consuming at all. And so if you just see anything with corn, soy, or sugar, just stay away from it, and you'll avoid a good majority of GMOs. You'll avoid 99% of them right there.
Okay. All right, Doc. Before we wrap up, what are 5 foods that we all should have in our house at all times? Give me 5 simple foods that we should always have, either in the kitchen or the pantry, wherever it may be. Always have these foods on hand.
Yeah, these are your staples. So if you were to go into my kitchen, I really don't have that great a variety of foods in my refrigerator or in my cupboard. I really don't. I guess I'm kind of bland. I don't really need variety, honestly. But I need to feel good and have tons of energy because a lot of people count on me. So coconut oil is a staple. So we want to make sure we're getting that on a regular basis. So coconut oil, raw chocolate. I love raw chocolate. In fact, my lunch 90% of the time consists of a lot of raw chocolate. My favorite lunch is my supercharged chocolate pudding. Mm-hmm. Rafael, you ever had that before?
Oh, yeah, it's delicious.
That's good. Yeah. So I take an avocado, which is our third superfood we want to be consuming, put that in my blender. I get some unsweetened almond milk, which is another great food that we can have. So unsweetened almond milk, I put 2 to 3 scoops of coconut oil. I want a lot of those good fats in there. Put that in. Then I go ahead, I put a bunch of raw chocolate. I use a non-denatured whey protein from grass-fed cows. I put that in. I put some extra stevia in there. I'll put a little bit of chia seed, blend it up, comes out, tastes absolutely amazing and satisfies me. And the raw chocolate helps boost dopamine. So when I've worked hard all morning, I want a little, just a little energy, a little feel good and a little pick me up. And dopamine really helps us drive harder towards our goals. Dopamine helps us feel good, and it helps us with just overall drive. And so it really helps me be productive in the afternoon. So I have something like that. It's very low carb, high in good, highly absorbable and easily digestible fats. And it's got a lot of antioxidants because the raw chocolate's so rich in antioxidants. So that, and then for dinner, typically, I'm cooking, of course, in coconut oil, and I'll have something like grass-fed beef. I'll have pasture-raised eggs. I'll have maybe wild-caught salmon or free-range pastured chicken, something along those lines, or even wild game like deer, venison, or buffalo or bison, something along those lines. Lots of vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are great, so I might have some steamed broccoli and cauliflower, maybe some asparagus or cabbage or something along those lines. A little bit of fermented vegetables. So again, sauerkraut, kimchi, things like we talked about already. Then I go ahead, I just put a ton of herbs, the herbs that we already talked about, oregano, basil, thyme. I put extra virgin olive oil on everything. I'll squeeze fresh lemon on it. And that way I've got tons of antioxidants, tons of good fats, tons of clean protein. And these are the kind of foods that I'm eating on a regular basis. And I just rotate out different vegetables, different clean meats. But, it comes down to probably the same 20 items. And I'm just rotating through those, getting all these superfoods and powerful antioxidants and good fats into my body.
Yeah. Now, for all the listeners, if you're sitting at home trying to take notes but you can't write this fast, you're in luck because all these recipes are at Dr. Jockers' website at drjockers.com, which is a phenomenal resource for all health things, but primarily it's a great nutritional resource. With how many recipes do you have there? You have you have tons of recipes.
Yeah, probably around 200 right now.
Yeah.
And those are all freely accessible for our listeners?
Yeah, freely accessible, yeah.
Okay. This is a great question that Ralph had earlier, and I'm curious to hear your thought. If you were stuck on a desert island and you had water, but you could have one food on the island with you, what food would you have with you?
And you don't have a blender, so you can't do that pudding.
There's no blenders involved.
I'd probably take coconut oil. I mean, I could just survive right on that. So some sort of coconut product. I take the whole coconut.
Okay, there you
I can have the meat. I can have the water. Yep. So
all right.
Can't go wrong with coconut. That's why they grow on the islands, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that works out well because they're probably already going to be there.
All right, Dr. Jockers, what's a good way for our listeners and people watching to connect with you? Like, what are some outlets for them to reach you?
Yeah, best ways to reach me are going to be through my website, drjockers.com, or my Facebook page, Dr. David Jockers. So, certainly shoot me any questions on my Facebook page. We got a great community there and constantly posting really cutting-edge health information there. And I have a great community of people that help me to answer a lot of people's questions on that page. It's a great place to plug in.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, from all of us and all of our listeners, I want to say thank you for your sharing your research and knowledge and all your expertise in health, and we really appreciate it. And I can say that I learned a lot. I know that people at home learned a lot too.
Yeah, it was awesome. Packed with a lot of value, so we appreciate that, and I know our listeners will get a lot out of it.
I'm going to have to give that pudding a try for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, it was a real honor to be on. I really appreciate it, and I love what you guys are doing. And, hopefully we'll get this out to more people so they can hear this information, and we can help transform the world together.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the goal for all of us, right? As chiropractors and as, what we're doing with all of our stuff. So it's exciting.
All right, guys. Yep. Thanks a lot for listening in to Shifted Health Podcast number 6. This was with our guest, Dr. David Jockers. We're talking about nutrition. And like always, go on to iTunes, subscribe, share this with your friends, allow them to see a different side of life and help them change their paradigm to better health and future. Give us a review. Give us some 5 stars. Reach out to Dr. Jockers. And until next time, this is Shifted Health Podcast, giving you back the keys to your health.
Thanks, Doc. Awesome. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.
Hey, when you guys get the YouTube, too, send it over to me. Email it to me.
Got it.
Or Facebook or something like that, and I'll put it on my Facebook page.
Awesome.
So,
Thanks. Great.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Doc.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep.